John, are you able to hear me?
Hello.
Hi, John, can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound better now, but you've been breaking up a lot.
Still breaking up a little bit. Hi, everyone. We're having a little bit of audio problems, but we'll get started in just a couple minutes. Just letting a few more people join. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay.
Just letting a few more people. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you well, John.
Yes, I can hear you well, John. Oh, great. Okay.
But I'm still broken up, huh?
You're sounding better, but you're still kind of breaking.
Can everyone hear me okay? John, is that a little better?
I think so.
Okay, great.
Sorry about my dogs.
That's okay. All right, everyone, we'll get started right now. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And John, I'm just going to mute you for now until it's your portion. All right, so good morning and thanks everyone taking the time to join us on the Seismic Strengthening at Home workshop. My name is Pilar Garibay. I'm a program specialist with the Energy and Sustainability today, and I'll be helping to moderate today for our presentation. So I've been with the Energy and Sustainability Division for 3 years, about 3 years. And then joining me today is John Sutter. He's a local building performance expert and owner of Applied Building Science in Santa Rosa. And I'll let John tell you a little bit more about himself when we pass the presentation over to him. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please enter them into the chat window to be addressed. Following the workshop today, a link to the recording of the workshop will be sent out to all participants. Just a little bit about our division. Not many people realize that the county has an energy and sustainability division, or if they do, they don't realize the number of services that we offer for the community. The division was originally created in 2006 to address internal county energy use in order to migrate climate change through greenhouse gas reduction. And in 2009, our first community-facing program was introduced. The Sonoma County Energy Independence Program, also known as SCIPE, was and is the first and longest running residential PACE program, which stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy. The program allowed property owners to finance energy and water savings improvements as a tool in reducing greenhouse gases, which has since been expanded to include wildfire safety and seismic strengthening improvements. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail later. Since that time, we have added a number of resources and services. Our primary focus is buildings and behaviors. We assist customers through a variety of services. We work with cities, towns, special districts, businesses, and residents to increase energy efficiency in their buildings through audits, energy, retrofit projects, rebates, and financing. We offer the county's PACE financing to property owners that now includes financing for water, energy, solar, battery backup, wildfire safety, and seismic strengthening improvements for both retrofits and new construction. Our consultation services provide a no-cost, impartial, informational, and educative community members so that we can make informed decisions related to building improvements and offer project planning services to help identify resources such as incentives, rebates, and financing to get the projects done. And we host a number of workshops and trainings for the community and workforce development. Today, we will be focused on seismic strengthening at home. There are additional workshops in the series on a variety of topics such as home energy, solar and batteries, switching to an electric home, wildfire safety improvements, and funding your projects, in which we go into greater detail about each topic. When we send out the slides, you'll get a list of upcoming workshops and registration links. It is our plan to build out a library of on-demand content, so look out for that in the near future. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to John Sutter, and we're just going to do a bit of a switch in the screen sharing.
Hello.
All right. All right, John, so you should be able to
hopefully
share your screen.
Great. So I have a message saying host disabled attendee screen sharing, but hopefully, let's see, let me close that. Let's just see what happens when I click right here. Okay, is that visible, folks? I hope. So we want to start at the beginning, and sorry for the technology glitches, but I have a feeling I'm not the only one who has battled Zoom issues. So the California, the Golden State, we live in paradise, except there where it's not an absolute total paradise, because we do have, unfortunately, some little issues. One of them we're all top of mind because it's happened 3 years in a row is some terrible wildfires. But I'm not here to talk about wildfires, even though Skype, our host today, is very happy to finance improvements that reduce the risk of your home being burned in a wildfire. But again,
John?
We're talking about something. Yes.
It doesn't look like we can see your screen. Try sharing it again.
Oh, okay. So let's go back here and let's click share. Oh, so let's do allow and share. We should have, oh, okay. So hopefully we'll try it again. Do we have a screen now? Technical issues. Sorry, folks. Share your entire screen application. Oh, looky there. There just may be hope yet. PowerPoint slideshow share. Is that working? Well, talking into silence here, so start over again. I'm going to assume we're working, and sorry out there. Anyway.
John, that looks great. We can see it.
Oh, yay, we're working. Okay, so my job is to scare you guys a little bit, I don't know, be realistic. So this was our county courthouse in Courthouse Square before the earthquake of 1906. And if you're in Courthouse Square, walking around it, the modern one, they've actually kind of laid out the footprint. If you look pretty much in the center of the square, you'll see exactly where the old courthouse sat. So, and then the San Andreas Fault decided to slip, and that's what the courthouse looked after the earthquake of April 18th, 1906. Not a happy sight, especially for those of us that love Sonoma County and Santa Rosa. This is looking down 4th Street toward the courthouse. Pretty impressive. Of course, there was a lot less understanding of structural engineering. Fortunately, we've learned a lot, and the chances of something this severe happening have been greatly reduced because of modern knowledge and building techniques. However, the threat's still here. And they'll show you a few pictures that have actually happened recently around here. So the upper right-hand corner is the Cypress Structure Freeway running through Oakland. And I had been on that structure 1 week before the earthquake. And that killed 50 or 60 people, and pretty sad. Of course, it was an incredibly ugly structure, so in one way, it's certainly not missed. This is the Napa Courthouse, or excuse me, post office. They had a little earthquake about 3 years ago, and this is what it did to the post office. Again, unreinforced masonry, very dangerous. This scene here shows a broken gas pipe that ignited, and pretty big gap there. Of course, there's the famous picture of the one car right on the edge of the Bay Bridge when a portion of the Bay Bridge collapsed and sent a couple vehicles into the bay. So it's serious business. And these are some houses in Northern California that got either hit by Loma Prieta in '89 or the Napa earthquake. And you can kind of see that the houses have been knocked off their foundation. So a big focus of the state is making sure houses are properly attached to their foundation. Good way to ruin a day. So looking back, it'd be pretty easy to identify the structural flaws that allowed this to happen. if you live in a home that was built before 1979, there's a good chance you're going to be more prone to damage, primarily because the building code at the time didn't fully allow for the hazards of earthquakes and what it takes to be rugged enough to not be shaken down or shaken apart. We're a lot safer now than we were 40 years ago, but it's still, yeah, we still are going to have to face some earth shaking because it's inevitable. The old saying is, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. So just to kind of understand the earthquake a little bit, what happens, it's a shaking of the ground caused by sudden movement between faults, and faults are fractures in the Earth's crust. And a little terminology. So we think the Earth is pretty solid, but it's actually moving all the time, imperceptibly, for the most part, fortunately. But we actually have an average, oh, there's the bells of St. Mary. We have an average of about 100 earthquakes in California a day, but they're very small, almost imperceptible to us as humans, but not to seismographs. So just a little bit of terminology so you can sound hip at your next cocktail party when we get to have cocktail parties again. The epicenter is where on the surface is directly over the focus where the big movement of the plate started. And then a fault is where the plates sit together. And next picture might help. This was a little screenshot I took back in September when I did a presentation similar to this. This is one days where they identified the biggest earthquakes. You can see this is the 25th, 24th, 23rd. So more information than you really want to know, but there are three primary types of slippage between plates that are rubbing together. The one in California that we're most aware of is the subduction motion, where one plate is actually grinding underneath the other plate. And so the different types of earthquake with different types of motions, and structural engineers have to be smart enough to design for all these different types of motions. And there's four primary motions. Let's talk about plates first. So these are the big plates throughout the world. You can see the Pacific plate, which is a pretty good sized chunk of the Earth, is grinding up against the North American plate. And they're moving at the rate of about ½ an inch a year against each other. So the question is, when does that pressure of that movement that the plates want to make, when do they slip and release that energy? So we hope someday we can actually predict earthquakes. We're not there yet, but this is where we live and this is our concern. But you can see Japan is notorious for being an earthquake country, like California, and Fukushima can show how serious the tsunamis that result from earthquakes. And actually anyone who lives fairly close to the ocean should be aware that earthquakes along these edges can generate some pretty big waves that can cause a lot of damage. So if you live close to the ocean, like in Bodega Bay, remember where the high ground is. Anyway, primary plates on the Earth. So getting a little closer to us, this big long streak right here is the San Andreas Fault. It's almost 600 miles long. And it passes right, Tamales Bay is a part of the San Andreas Fault, actually runs underneath the bay. That's one reason seismologists believe that our movement between the Pacific and the North American plates are actually in subduction. So they actually made a big dent where the ocean could fill in that bay. Little closer look. This is Santa Rosa, home sweet home. This is Petaluma, home sweet home. So these are the big plates they pretty well understand, the biggest ones with the most potential. These are, the orange ones are one that they have a fairly, seismologists have a fairly good understanding of. And then the purple ones are the ones that generally speaking, they think pose less threat, but there has definitely been movement in all these little faults in purple. So this big long one here is the, let's see, Hayward Stevens Creek Fault, which actually they thought were separate, but then they found out they actually connect through all the way down to Hayward. This is a history of how many earthquakes we've had since about 1780, I believe. Red ones are big ones, 7+. A lot of green ones, 6 to 7. The red line here is the San Andreas Fault that they know, they pretty well understand that movement. Pretty well runs through our pretty crowded coastal areas, but 7+ is serious. I believe the worst earthquake on record in North America happened in Alaska, I believe in 68 or 69, and it was, and don't hold me to this, but my recollection was it was like an 8.6, and that shook down almost everything. That was very intense. Anyway, those plates are moving, and when they slip, it really shakes the ground. So here's a little chart of the level of hazard that state seismologists believe various areas in California are prone to. So you can see our little home up here in Santa Rosa has a fair amount of little white running through it, which is pretty high level hazard area. That's one reason the state has been providing some rebates for people to go in and retroactively strengthen the attachment of the house to their foundation. And also one reason why Sonoma County is happy to finance seismic retrofits, because we are simply stated in a high hazard area. Another closer look. So there's our nice little Santa Rosa. A lot of purple and red. If you're living up in the hills, those mountains tend to be more stable than down here in the valleys. They say that the Santa Rosa Plain is alluvial soil that's been washed down for millions of years from the mountains and settled. And they say when an earthquake hits, that alluvial soil acts like jello. It can vibrate quite a while, but with different motions in its vibration. So another little look at faults, Rogers Creek, and then here's the bay. Not the easiest map to read, and they pretty sure these two are actually the same fault. And then the Mayakama fault, and then of course the San Andreas fault. And you can see where it runs right down the middle of Tamales Bay. And another little picture for you. This is an area they mapped out, the state and county mapped out pretty well to identify faults. Quite a few of them. This is the intersection of 101 and Highway 12. And here's pretty much downtown. So one reason they shut down the old Memorial Hospital on Chenate is it was virtually right underneath a fault. And just one more picture showing faults. That's my home. A little curious. One point I would make about that, though, is don't think if you're 10 miles away from a fault that your house isn't going to get shaken. The Loma Prieta earthquake centered in Santa Cruz, very close to it in the hills to the east of Santa Cruz. And we felt it pretty darn good here in Santa Rosa. I can tell you exactly what I was doing when that earthquake hit, and it's something you'll never forget. I had to reach out and grab a door jamb because I was afraid I was going to get knocked to the ground. And it's frightening. It's kind of brings the seriousness of it. And that was not an extreme earthquake by any stretch of the imagination. So those energy waves that are released when those plates shift against each other travel hundreds of miles. And this is a little thing just to show you that there's the guys that study this have identified 4 primary ways that energy waves travel through the surface of the earth. And somebody who named these had a great sense of humor, because one of this type of wave right here is called the love wave. So there's got to be an interesting story how it got that name. So this is 3 examples of how houses can get knocked off their foundation. And once they're off their foundation, they're almost always damaged to the point where they have to be demolished. So it's really important to make sure your house is securely attached to your foundation. So the big one's coming. What can we do about it? Well, let's start with being careful where we put heavy things over our head, or ideally your bookshelves, if you have a lot of books on them, should be attached to a stud in the walls. I'll let you guys read this for just a second, but you don't want a lot of heavy things over your head. If you have big heavy chandeliers, hope your electrician securely attached it to something solid in the ceiling. So another thing, make sure your water heater is strapped. A lot of fires and a lot of damage. They say that about half the damage in San Francisco was actually the result of fire. And then The fire department at that time had the idea they could stop fires by dynamiting ahead of the fire. Turned out that really wasn't a great theory, and that did a fair amount of damage to San Francisco too. But anyway, yeah, if this water heater tips over and this flexible line is torn, you're putting a lot of potential dangerous fuel in your home. Not good. So make sure your water heater's strapped. Anytime we do any kind of work on a house that requires a permit, we always have to show that the water heater's strapped and that there's smoke and CO2 detectors installed in the house. So it's become pretty common, which it should be. Know how to turn off the gas to your house. This is a typical gas cock right here. And you, when it's lined up parallel with the pipe, it's on. And when it's 90 degrees to the pipe, it's off. So a lot of people keep a wrench close to that. Of course, the other solution is to go all electric, which is becoming encouraged more and more as our electrical supply gets cleaner and cleaner. In my own home, for example, I have no more gas appliances, not just for safety, but for greenhouse gas reduction. So you're going to see less and less gas as we go forward into the years. Eventually, gas, as you know, in Santa Rosa, Petaluma, Windsor, there's no new gas connections going into any new buildings. So the other thing is, if you live if you have a friend that's a structural engineer, invite them over for a cocktail party when we're having cocktail parties again, and ask him to look your house over and see if he sees any obvious flaws. I will tell you, I would not sleep well in this house. I don't know how they ever got permission to even build like that, but split level houses are notorious weak against earthquakes, because the single story butting up to the 2 stories, it's difficult to make a good secure attack. It's not difficult, you just have to know what you're doing to make sure structurally the 1 story is securely tied into the 2 story. And so just some more examples. If you have a masonry fireplace, those guys can be real hazards. If you want to keep that fireplace, it should be, you should have metal bands and poles that go back and anchor it into secure spots in the roof. So you might not want to sleep right next to your masonry fireplace chimney. So why are older houses more prone to earthquake damage? This is an example. This is the bolt that's required in modern construction, where the wood mud sill is bolted down. That's the first piece of metal, or excuse me, wood that the house is framed to. These are the washers that are used to make sure this is a mud sill, rim joist, flooring joist. Up until 79, we had little 1/2-inch bolts with little dinky washers that were real easy to as the house is moving, not enough meat there to really make this a secure connection. A lot of houses just jumped right off the foundation when the motion was up and down. So Um, you know, yeah, if your home was built before 79, consider doing some reinforcement to make sure the wood framing stays on the concrete. Or you have houses that can look like this and kind of ruin your day. There's two ways to go about strengthening your home and ensuring it stays together in an earthquake. This is kind of a funky picture of some plans. We call them the standard set. And the state has had engineers get together and do a powwow and come up with plans to reinforce a house or to ensure that a house stays on its foundation with reinforcement. They're free to anyone to use. If your house qualifies and there's in its construction, you can use this, you can submit this to the building department and get your permit. It's a little bit complicated. You're going to need someone who has a basic understanding of construction to try to do your retrofit based on these plans, but you don't need to pay a structural engineer. The engineering's all been done as long as your home falls within certain qualifications. And that's done by using the standard plan A, which you can download online, probably from the California Earthquake Authority. We've done multiple dozens of homes strictly using standard plan A. There's the second page of those plans. Then these pictures are a little more understandable what's really involved. So this is a reinforcement plate that if we go in and do a structural attachment program, we can use 40 or 50 of these plates as we go all the way around the foundation. And then if you're on a cripple wall to raise the house up, there's reinforcement procedures we can use with plywood, and that's all got to be rated. But this gives you an idea of what a standard plan retrofit looks like. And this shows how you can reinforce a cripple wall. Cripple walls are really a weakness, particularly when they have vertical siding, which was pretty common before World War II. Pretty easy to knock a house like that over, kind of in a domino fashion on these cripple wall studs that support the floor above. So here we are doing some retrofitting. This is an L angle that we nail into the mud sill and we nail into the blocking of the rim joist to keep that connection tight. We'll put somewhere around 40 to 60 or 70 of these in a house when we're reinforcing its attachment to its foundation. Here we are drilling for these reinforcement plates that make sure the mud sill stays attached to the concrete of the foundation. Another, sometimes it's pretty tight work. I admire our crew for being able to do this all day. It's not easy work, but the people that live in this house can sleep a little better when we're done. So here's two state agencies that can give you a lot of further information about retrofitting your home. And these are the rules if you want to try to participate in the Earthquake Authority's rebate program. They'll kick in $3,000, but you have to apply at a certain time, and it's a lottery. Not everybody wants to wait around for a lottery, but it definitely has inspired a lot of people to take securing their home seriously. So I love this. What does a structural engineer do? Yeah, basically they learn their stuff from experience. They do a lot of math, do a lot of math guessing, but it's going out usually after a pretty good sized earthquake. Dozens of structural engineers will descend on the earthquake zone to see how things fell down and to try to figure out what kind of motion caused that kind of failure. And a typical structural engineer design can cost you, just in rough numbers, between $2,000 and maybe $5,000, depending on the size of your home and how complex it is. But they're the guys that live, eat, and breathe, making sure buildings don't fall down in an earthquake. Here's a little form that those of you in real estate recognize. It's becoming a big issue when you sell a home as to whether or not it's been structurally reinforced. And one of the things we do after we reinforce a home is write a letter certifying the retrofit, and that allows people that have earthquake insurance typically to get a 25% reduction in their premium. So yeah, thanks folks. You know, we love rock and roll, but not in our dirt, but it's coming. So thanks again.
Thanks, John. And we do have a question. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them into the chat. So if anybody has any questions, go ahead and type them into the chat. We do have one question. Someone asked, I am building a new home in Santa Rosa. Do I need to install an automatic shutoff valve for natural gas line? And do we need a particular equipment to install for installing the meter? Installing at the meter, sorry.
That's pretty much a question for the building department and your plumber. That's not something that we as a company deal with. You know, it sounds like a good idea. I'm kind of surprised you must have gotten your permit before the gas ban went into effect. But yeah, it sounds like a good idea.
Okay. If anybody else has any other questions, feel free to type them into the chat. Again, we will be sending out the slide presentation to everyone. So any information, the information for the Sonoma County Energy and Sustainability Division is there. If you want to reach out, ask about any of the improvements that you might be able to finance with the Sonoma County Energy Independence Program, or anything else. Again, we do have consultation services that we can offer for solar as well as home retrofitting. Okay, I don't see any other questions.
Well, I guess I
Thank you,
figured it all out.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Really appreciate your help, and thank you everybody for your patience today. And we will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Bye.